Good evening. Sorry, old trope, couldn't help myself. So, vampires. Apparently a lot of comic heroes are turned into vampires, and we're gonna count down the 10 we love. Also of note, Dracula is related to pretty much all of them. Gotta hand it to Bram Stoker, that character has endured. So, here's my top 10 superheroes who became vampires. Number 10. Batman. In the first of a three-part series titled Batman and Dracula Red Reign, Batman discovered that a family of vampires led by Dracula are behind a series of homeless murders in Gotham City. After being bitten by a vampire, Batman develops vampiric strength and is able to fight against Dracula's minions. Batman lures them into the Batcave, where Batman detonates explosives, destroying Wayne Manor but killing the vampire minions. Batman confronts Dracula, impaling him on a tree. However, Dracula drains the last of Batman's blood before he perishes, taking the last of Batman's humanity and turning Batman into a full vampire. The story continues in Batman Bloodstorm and Batman Crimson Mist, and Red Reign was so popular, it became the fourth most ordered graphic novel of 1991 and the year's 17th best-selling graphic novel overall. Not bad for an idea that sounds like it came out of Scooby-Doo. Number 9. Jubilee. So, after a vampire suicide bomber exploded in Union Square, Jubilee was coated with blood, specifically vampire blood, and it was slowly taking over her. The vampire's hypnosis began to overtake her, causing her to depart for her perceived masters. Zaris, the son of Dracula, bit Jubilee and turned her into a vampire. As a vampire, Jubilee's powers changed, giving her superhuman strength and speed, as well as the ability to turn into vapor. After the vampire army was defeated, Jubilee was saved by Quentin Quire, who used a shard of the Phoenix Force to save her and restore her mutant abilities. Her tenure as a vampire also led to her turning another famous X-Man. Number 8. Wolverine. Wolverine might be the least surprising hero to become a vampire, or at least the one you would least want to become a vampire. Let's face it, dude's already nearly feral, the last thing he needs is more bloodthirst. So, when the son of Dracula Zaris appeared in California and managed to turn Jubilee into a vampire, Wolverine attempted to find her, but instead was bitten by Jubilee, and also turned into a vampire. In the battle between the X-Men and the vampires, Wolverine arrives and begins to demolish his former allies. Cyclops presses a remote given to him by Dr. Nemesis, having anticipated the possibility of contracting vampirism. Wolverine had had his blood taken to test if his healing factor could resist it, but Dr. Nemesis had injected him with nanobots to shut down his healing factor. With his healing factor reactivated, Wolverine recovers from his vampirism and immediately turns on them, thus ending his brief time as a vampire. Which is definitely for the best. But there's another X-Man who also turned into a vampire for a time. Number 7. Storm. In the alternate reality of Mutant X, Storm was bitten by Dracula, which led to her new vampiric identity as Bloodstorm. She went her separate way from the X-Men for a time to avoid succumbing to her bloodlust, although periodically feeding from Forge and Kitty Pryde. This character was immensely popular, with editors reporting that a majority of fan mail regarding the series was being directed at their appreciation for the character of Bloodstorm. This led to her having her own solo stories within this universe. In another story, Madeline Pryor came to Bloodstorm's dimension, inviting her to join her team of Hexmen, and in exchange would cure her of her vampirism. However, Bloodstorm witnesses how Madeline's ambitions greatly outweigh her concern for the well-being of the Hexmen, and convinces Beast to help her send Madeline and the rest of the Hexmen to the underworld. Tragically, this character would perish in X-Men's extermination event when she is impaled by Ahab. However, before her death, Bloodstorm would also turn another X-Men into a vampire. Number 6. Gambit. So, after Gambit was critically injured and begged Bloodstorm to turn him into a vampire so that he could survive, reluctantly, Bloodstorm agreed and turned Gambit into a vampire. But he became resentful toward her for transforming him and ran away. This version of Gambit actually did receive a cure for his vampirism, at least partially, and that allowed him to better control his bloodlust, and allowed him to walk in the daylight. But Vampire Gambit would eventually disappear after stealing the team's jet and flying away with his adopted daughter Raven. Alas, some people don't take to being vampires very well. Number 5. Hulk. So, it's interesting to note that we actually have two versions of Vampire Hulk. The first appearing in Ultimate Comics Avengers 3, and the second appearing in the animated series Avengers Assemble. Beginning with the comic version, this version of Hulk, also known as Nerd Hulk, is a clone of Hulk created by Tony Stark's older brother, Gregory, by using Bruce's stem cells. After Nerd Hulk traveled to New York City, he was attacked by vampires and turned, soon working for a vampire known as Anthony. Hulk was an instrumental vampire in this storyline, even being known known as the Vampire King, and managed to turn both Stick and Daredevil. Hulk, unsurprisingly given he's, the Hulk, usurps Anthony's position, kills him, and becomes their leader. Sadly, Vampire King Nerd Hulk was not long for this world and was decapitated by Captain America while he was burning alive in the daylight. Yeesh. Heck of a way to go, but for a guy like Hulk, I'd have no less. The Avengers Assemble version only appears briefly, but in an encounter with Dracula, the Hulk is turned by him. However, Hulk's gamma-irradiated blood proves incompatible with the vampire's curse, prompting the Avengers to anger Hulk in order to burn up the vampire blood elements. Not much to this one, but hey, we get 2 Vampire Hulks for the price of 1. Number 4. Joker. So this is an interesting one. So despite being killed by Batman during his tenure as a vampire, in the Wonder Woman edition of the Convergence miniseries, the vampire Joker is revealed to have survived and begins his assault on Gotham, even enthralling Poison Ivy and Catwoman. Tragically, shortly after encountering them both, Steve Trevor and Etta Candy were also both turned. Diana successfully stakes Joker, but sadly, it's already too late and her loved ones are lost. A sad ending, but if it's any consolation, at the end of Convergence, this timeline is lost, so at least her pain wasn't endless. As far as Joker goes, he's more or less what you'd expect. He's Joker, but with fangs and bat wings. Not too shabby, nothing too special, and he doesn't go full furry like Catwoman does. Number 3. Spider-Man. This one is kind of ridiculous. So, during a one-shot crossover event between Spider-Man and Blade, the two team up to take on an underground vampire fighting ring. However, Spider-Man gets turned into a vampire. Fortunately for him, this is an artificial type of vampire, and they get the bright idea to cure it by using a tanning bed. Yeah, kind of a weird way to stop being a vampire, but hey, it worked. It is a fun story though, and a quick read, so if you want to see that particular crossover, give it a shot. Number 2. Black Widow. So, in the TV series Avengers Assemble, the same one where Hulk became a vampire, during an attempt to track Red Skull, Black Widow is led to Transylvania, but is captured by Dracula and turned into a vampire. Black Widow, as Dracula's thrall, leads an attack with other vampires on Avengers Tower, leading the Avengers to discover her current status as a vampire. The Avengers eventually defeated Dracula and then brought the now unconscious Black Widow with them onto the Quinjet. Iron Man utilized a form of Hulk's DNA to cure her of her infection, and thankfully it was successful. Black Widow was rid of her vampirism. Not too much to that story, but hey, we got Black Widow vampire, so can't complain. Number 1. Dick Grayson. During the events of the Countdown to Final Crisis, a storyline known as The Hunt for Ray Palmer saw several characters searching for Ray. In an issue titled Red Rain, a reference to the Batman vs. Dracula comic of the same name, Jason Todd traveled to a different Earth where Dick Grayson had become a vampire hunter after Batman had become a vampire. Tragically, Dick is bitten by Batman after attempting to kill him, and Jason Todd is forced to flee this Earth. And the story ends with Batman and Robin, now vampires, as the guardians of Gotham. And that is it for our vampire superheroes. Kind of a weird concept, but I like it. Any vampire superheroes or even just vampires you like better? Let me know in the comments. Have a good one.